What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be recording myself learning something in real time as if I'm on a stream, only I'm not. That way I don't get distracted by comments. And this is going to be a lot like the Let's Learn Angular series that I've been doing, which I'm putting on pause for just a little bit while I figure out exactly where I want to go with the rest of that series. But I will be getting back to it. So recently I've been streaming a lot on Twitch, basically while I just work through this stuff on freeCodeCamp. And it's been going really good and it's been a lot of fun. However, I thought it would be nice to make something that is a little more geared toward some YouTube content. That way it's maybe just a little bit more engaging for you as a YouTube viewer versus me kind of talking to people that you can't even see or see the chat, because I like my stream to look clean and I don't have the chat on the screen. So yeah, I mean, let's jump in. So let me go over to the browser. I have here freeCodeCamp open. I've been working through the backend development and APIs certificate, and I hit this project called Exercise Tracker. And the reason I thought this might be pretty decent YouTube content is because it's the first project that is actually pretty decent in scope for this backend track. So you can see there are quite a number of tests, and a few endpoints and a few edge cases. It's just a little more complicated than the rest of the projects that I've done so far. And I want to preface this by saying that if you are a freeCodeCamp student trying to get into the industry as a self-taught developer, or for whatever reason you're doing freeCodeCamp, highly recommend that you actually solve this challenge on your own before watching this video. You're not doing yourself any favors by just copying what I do. However, if you either know that you're not going to do this challenge, maybe this video is for you, or if you have done it, it might be interesting for you to watch somebody else do it. I'm going to be not just conforming to, or not conforming, but rather I'm not meeting minimum requirements. I'm not just going to get these tests to pass and be done with it. I'm actually going to be test driving this application as I make it. So I'll be writing my own tests before I even deploy it. And the game that I kind of like to play when I'm streaming on Twitch, and this doesn't always work, by the way, is I try to test drive the whole thing, put the solution link up here, which is wherever I'm going to host my application, which is going to be Heroku, by the way. I'm going to show you how. And then I click run, and I just hope that everything passes, because hopefully if all my tests pass locally on my machine, all the tests in freeCodeCamp should pass as well, assuming that I interpreted the requirements properly, which sometimes I don't. But yeah, so I am going to start up here. Now these don't usually give much of a description for what the actual project is, so I don't really have anything to read out loud here, but I'm just going to click this link. This is the example application running. And all of these backend projects have like some sort of a front end. It's really more just for you as a student to see and experiment with the kind of the API to get a sense of it. I'm not going to be building a front end during this video series, because it's probably going to be a series. And yeah, so I'm going to be leaving this alone. Basically, I'm going to install a boilerplate off of GitHub, and it'll look exactly like this. But yeah, it's an exercise tracker, so we can create users. They don't take passwords, they just take names. So we've got Jimmy Jim here, and we can submit. I don't think that's a valid username. Apparently it is, actually, which is fine. And then I got an ID, and I can go back over here into, oops, sorry, go back here, and I can pass that ID. I could do some sort of a description here. And I can say this is a 15-minute exercise, and we'll just say we did on 7/8/1990. And if I submit, I got an error saying that the description was too long. So it looks like there's probably going to be some validation that we're going to have to do here. But obviously, if I had gotten that right, it would have created an exercise somewhere. And then there's this other thing, this other API endpoint where we can get logs. So let me try to create an actual valid one. So we'll say on that user, do some sort of a short description. We'll submit this. And so our API is going to have to be able to return an object that looks like this whenever we hit this API, given a valid user. And then it looks like there's another endpoint for logs. So let me try to fill this one out. So if I pass a ID to API users. So I'm gonna go API/users/ now I have the ID of the user that I created, Jimmy Jim. And then logs. And then it looks like optionally I can pass some parameters here. So I could do like from, I'm assuming takes a date, to probably takes a date, and a limit is just some sort of a count. So I could say like, you know, maybe I only want to limit it to like 5 logs or something like that. But let's see what this gives us. I almost forgot to put the slash here, so I'll stick that back. And this is what our log API is going to look like. So this is just going to be a list of all of our exercises. So yeah, this is kind of the thing that we're going to have to build. We're just going to build the back end for it, no front end. Although, you know what? I'm trying to figure out where to take this Angular series. So maybe this is it. Maybe we start a new application and it could be the front end to this API. Or yeah, if you wanted to learn anything else in Angular and you had some ideas for me, feel free to mention them in the comments and I'll take a look. And if I like it, then yeah, we will do that. For now, I'm just going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to close this example. We don't need it. I am going to go into GitHub to grab this boilerplate. You don't have to use GitHub to follow along with freeCodeCamp. There's other options. You could use like Replit. They have this. I'm assuming you could pull this into something else like Code Sandbox or whatever. Personally, Replit is awesome. Replit's awesome. But for like, you know, one-offs, I use Replit for like, I want to play with a language and I just don't want to figure out how to install it and stuff. And basically I just want like a play box to tinker with things and practice or prove people wrong when they say that this doesn't work in X language and I say it does. And then I go prove them wrong and then I'm wrong and I find out that they're right. But other than that, I don't like building whole projects in it. So we're actually going to jump into my command line and we're just going to clone this thing locally so that I can work inside of VS Code, which I think is a much nicer experience. So I will pull this down. And I need to, I guess I need to CD into that. So we'll go exercise tracker. And I think I'm about to lose, as soon as I CD into this, I'm probably, oh no, it is actually back on. Okay, you guys can see my terminal, that's good. I need to check out a new branch. We're gonna do main. And so I'm going to deploy this thing to Heroku. So for those of you who are not familiar with Heroku, it's a place where you can host your applications, and it can be very cheap for simple apps like the one that we're about to build. So cheap it's free, which is why I like to use it. And they have a nice CLI, which I'm going to show you in a minute, which is probably the bigger reason why I use it. It's just very easy to get going. So if you search Heroku CLI in Google or whatever, you will find, well, I mean, you're not going to see this unless you have grepper, which I highly recommend installing if you're using Chrome. It's a pretty sick plugin. But yeah, a lot of you are going to be able to get away with npm i-g Heroku. If you're on Windows, if you're on Mac, you can do brew. However, if you're using WSL on Windows like I am, you're gonna wanna install it this way. So you're just gonna curl to the install script, and the reason, I mean, I don't know why, but the reason you're gonna want to do it is because if you install it through like npm or something, for whatever reason, when you go to log in to the CLI, which you're gonna need to do if you're gonna want to deploy applications, it just won't work. So I had to do it this way. I already did that though, so I'm gonna switch back into my terminal here. You're gonna want to just run a Heroku auth. You can do help and you can see all the things that you can do. Basically, if this is your first time running Heroku CLI, auth login, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna open up the web browser, ask you to log into Heroku, and it'll authenticate automatically with your CLI, and you'll be good to go. Then what are we gonna do? We're gonna make an app. So Heroku apps create, and you can call it whatever you want. I'm gonna call it exercise tracker -2 maybe, because the reason is these are globally unique URLs. So I've never created this app on Heroku, but somebody else did. And I was about 20 minutes into recording this, and I realized that there was an issue with the camera not picking up one of my windows. So I did create this, but I deleted it. I don't know if it's gonna work. Okay, it did work. That is now on Heroku. If I go over here, I'm gonna close this tab and I'm gonna close this tab. Okay, so I'm on Heroku. I don't think it's real time, so I just have to refresh the page, and I should see it here in the list. So FCC Exercise Tracker 2. And then I can open up the app. And for now, we just see the basic, this is just the base Heroku application before you've set anything up. So we want to deploy what we have now. So we go to deploy. Basically, there's a number of ways you can deploy. Eventually, you'd want to do this on GitHub. I probably am not going to do that for this project, but we're going to do it straight from the CLI. Just from our command line, we're going to automatically deploy. For real projects, you'd want to do something like GitHub or Bitbucket. Basically, the point of that is so that you can create a pull request, one for code review, which is a good thing to do usually. And the other reason is that that's just kind of a nice way to kick off continuous integration. So usually you have like a CI/CD step that's going to run through tests of your application, make sure everything is good to go before you merge that into your main branch. And then your main branch is going to hook into something like your deployment environment. In this case, it's Heroku. And that's going to trigger the deployment. It's not until your code gets merged into main, which is usually supposed to be vetted through code review, CI/CD, or just CI rather. The CD part is when it goes out to Heroku. And we're not going to do all of that. If you're interested in any of that, just let me know in the comments, and then maybe I'll, when we're done kind of building this thing out, test driving it. Did I mention that at the beginning? I'm going to be doing TDD throughout all of this. But yes, let's use the CLI. So if you click on the CLI method, you can see you basically init your Git project, which we cloned a boilerplate, so we don't need to do that. We can just copy this command here, go back over into the command line and paste that. This will set up our remote to point toward our Heroku repository. And the only thing we have to do now is just do a git push Heroku main. And you'll see me using these git aliases like this a lot. I forget not to use them when I'm recording videos or I'm on stream because I know a lot of people don't know these aliases. But because I have this alias tip here, all of these aliases came default with the plugin that I'm using in my terminal called Oh My ZSH. But yeah, so I get these tips. That's how I learn these aliases over time. And as you can see, as I pushed that, what ended up happening is we didn't just push code, but actually once this hit Heroku, we started building and deploying, and we get the logs of that progress. So now if I go over here to our app and I refresh, we get the front end of the boilerplate project that we just pulled down. So we've got our boilerplate deployed to Heroku, which means we can copy this URL and we can go back over into freeCodeCamp. We can go down here to where the solution link is. I'm going to paste that there. And now we're good to start running the test. And I'm going to hit F12 to open up my dev tools here. And maybe just zoom in a little bit. I always get worried that people can't read, like if you're on a smaller device or something. So the way that these tests work, basically when you click I've completed this challenge, every single one of these except for this first one is gonna actually send a HTTP request out to your application. It's going to expect it to return some response, and then it's going to run assertions against that response, and that'll determine whether or not you get a check mark or an X. So I'm going to click this button. I'm going to say that I completed the challenge, and you can see all these 404s, which just means that I haven't set up these routes. So users that try to send a post, let me close this so we can see more information on that, but let's see, headers, yeah, headers. So this was a post to /API/users. We can see what data it tried to send. If I go down here, it's just form data, username. But yeah, API doesn't exist yet because we haven't set it up. So that's what we're gonna do next. We're going to set up the API. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna open up code, and I will probably have to make sure that we're capturing code. And there we go. So now we're going with Visual Studio Code here. We've got the boilerplate. Let me show you around a little bit. All these boilerplate projects are basically the same with freeCodeCamp. In your public, you get some style sheet. In your views, you get, this is the index.html, so kind of the entry point into the front end of the app. Which we're not going to touch any of that. But the main important piece here, sometimes they come with these too, so we probably can make use of that if we want. I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Let's go over to the server.js. So what this is doing is it's pulling in Express, it's creating our application, and it's pulling in this library called course, as well as this is just a library in Node that allows .env files to work for like environment variables. Here we have app.use, so this is a way to use middleware in Express. And if you don't know what middleware is, it's just logic that executes either like when a request comes into your application. You can have middleware execute before it gets to the endpoint. So say you're trying to visit /API/users, middleware runs before you call the code that executes at that endpoint. So let's say someone was just trying to get to /. Course is just some code that runs before Express decides to run the code that's in here. And in this case, course is just making it so that freeCodeCamp is actually allowed to connect to our app. So if you don't have this set up, or you accidentally do something that removes this, your test will not pass because you'll be getting course errors, and freeCodeCamp won't be able to see any of the responses, which is something that I have done while working through these projects. So don't do that. And this middleware here, Express Static, is what is wiring up our public directory so that we can pull in style.css from our index file. Again, we're not really going to be focusing on the front end, but I do kind of just want to show you guys how these projects are pulled together. So basically here, we're referencing a style sheet called style.css. And you can think of that as being like /style.css. And actually, I can go right to the, it might make more sense if I kind of go here to the app. So basically, that middleware registered our public directory as something that serves static files. So if I go style.css, we actually find a CSS file. So it's important to note that we didn't register it in a way where you go public /style.css, okay? Public becomes like the root of our app for any static files that we want to include. Okay, so we've got that a little bit covered. We've got, what else is important here? There really isn't anything else. This is basically it. Now I could use this env. I don't know if there's much of a reason to in this app, to be honest. But if I go into my terminal here, I can just copy, so cp. See, I typed this command so much it actually just auto-completes for me, but basically just copy the env.example file, and we're just gonna store it. Oh, you know what? They kind of broke convention, because usually you call it something different, but we're gonna go sample.env. So we're just gonna take the contents of that, copy it into here. This is something that's pretty normal to do in applications when you're cloning them, especially when there's like 10s or 20s or 30s of environment variables in here. So we are going to, what's next? We did that. I think we need to npm install now at this point, so we're gonna do that. And luckily that was a quick install. We've got our dependencies. So what do we want to do? I already know I want to bring in Jest, because before we start anything, I'm just going to test drive this stuff. So let's go yarn. You know what? Let's do, yeah, let's use yarn. Yarn. No, this is already set up with a package JSON, so we're going to use npm. What is happening to my computer? Okay, so yeah, npm I-d, not yarn, Jest. But once we bring in Jest, we can start setting up some tests. I'll just let that keep going, and I'm gonna close this and close that. We're gonna set up the server.js file here. And yeah, basically once we start registering routes, we just want to make sure that our routes either get registered after, most importantly, the middleware, so we can register our routes down here. Or if we want to clean this up a little just for organization, we want to put our routes in some other file. I'll show you guys how to do that, but basically there's a different way to register routes with Express. So the main way is just doing app and then the name of the HTTP method. This will, when we want to move this into another file and then import it into server.js, this is going to give us issues, because basically the middleware won't apply to those routes. And I'm going to show you guys about that when we get that far. But for now, we're just going to stick inside of server.js. I am going to create a folder called tests. That is going to be the root, not inside of views. That was an accident. And inside of tests, let's make another folder. We're going to call it unit. Okay. And the name of the first test is going to depend on the name of the first test in freeCodeCamp, which is, let's see, you can post to API/users with form data username to create a new user. So basically, we're going to be working on user creation. And I just want to see what other things. So we've got post users, we've got another post user with form data username will be an object. So this is just like further sort of validating that API. We've got a get to users, is going to be kind of different. So yeah, I am going to, the way I kind of like going about this is separating the actual like the route and the logic that runs inside the route from like the function or service or class or whatever it is that does the work. So I'm not even going to register a route here yet, because we just don't need it. We're gonna do that later, and we're gonna test that with a with an HTTP test. But for starters, I'm just gonna make a function, and it's just gonna be called create user. And all this takes for now is just a username. And it is going to return data that matches the example, I guess. So let's go back over here. And I'm gonna create a doodad. And we are on the wrong app. I'm on my app instead of the example app. So let me pull that example app back up again, right here. So I lied a little bit because we do still need it. I closed it, said we didn't need it. We do. So doodad, submit that, and this is basically the structure that we're going off of. So part of this backend API course was like we learned how to use Mongo. So I'm assuming they're kind of wanting us to use Mongo, and this looks Mongo-y with this _ID thing. So this should be the response that we get from creating this inside of a database. But for now, I'm not actually going to worry about that until it comes up in the tests, where we need some way to persist this thing so it sticks around long term, so the next time we send a request that needs this data, things will work. So for now, I'm just going to kind of fake this. So this is just going to return an object for now that I'm not going to bother doing shorthand because I know I'm going to need a little bit more stuff in the body of this thing. We will go return an object, and it's going to have a username. And just so you know, this is shorthand for something. I'll show you in just a second. So the ID, I mean, for now, I could just do this, right? Maybe write some tests that drive more detailed behavior where this is generated from something. But yeah, real quick, just in case, because I know JavaScript is so like interesting. You can be doing it for a long time, but there's certain things that can just look odd. This is just shorthand for this. So anytime in JavaScript that you have a key in your object that's the same token or the same name as whatever the variable is that you're setting the value to, you can just do this instead of writing the same thing twice. So we're going to return a object that is a username of whatever the username that gets passed in. An ID for now is just going to be 123. So if I go over to our tests and unit, I'm going to create a new file and we're going to call this create. And I forgot to make the test first. I kind of started implementing this, so I did it a little backwards from TDD. But we're going to call this create user.spec.js. So yeah, I should have done this the other way around. It's okay though. Describe, we're just going to say create user. Oops. And we may have a few tests in here, but for now we're just going to say, oh, why does it do that? It can, well, it can create a user isn't the best description of this because I'm not actually proving that a user gets created, but I could just say it returns a user object. So what do I want this test to do? So what I've been doing for years is just setting up all my tests like this, where I have I organize my tests to try to be very focused. This kind of helps me stay focused as I have this arrangement. I have where I do the thing, call the function, send the HTTP request, whatever it is, it's the act. And then I assert some expectation. So arrange, assert act. Another, I don't know what you call it, like an ism, some sort of ism. Another one would be like given, when, then, I think is another one. There's a few of these that people come up with. It's just a way to organize kind of the setup, the actual like invocation of the thing you're testing, and then the thing that you're writing expectations against. So arrange is usually where you set up some sort of data. In this case, we don't really have any, I don't think. I do need to import that function, so I'm gonna do that. We're gonna go from /server for now, because that's what's being exported from. I don't think I need the .js on there, do I? Let's go over to server and just make sure we're actually exporting this. I'm gonna go down to the bottom of this file, and in Node we can do modules, or sorry, what is it? Yeah, it's module.exports. I always forget which one is plural and which one's not. Somebody when I was streaming on Twitch, someone said basically, if you think of it as this module exports, that's a good way to kind of remember. So it exports an object, and one of the things in that object that I want to export is going to be this create user method, create user. And that lets me import it from here using this destructuring syntax, which is just a way to grab keys out of an object. Basically, you think of this as like I'm importing an object. What keys do I want to grab out of it? I want to grab the create user key, which is our function. So again, I don't have anything to arrange here. It's just act and assert. So the act is create. Oh, you know what? I do have an arrange. There almost always is an arrange. But you could think of it as like given. So I like to use the word given in my variables sometimes, but given, we'll just say Johnny John. So when I call create user with the given data, I want to expect the result. So we'll just say the result. So I want to expect result to be, and we can say in this case, here's more a range actually, because another thing that I like to do is make a variable called expected. So this is basically the data that I expect to see back, which is going to be a username that is going to have the value of whatever the given username is. And for now, it's going to have this ID key, and it's just going to be hard-coded to 1, 2, 3. That's inevitably going to have to change, obviously, but we're going to say that we're going to expect result to be expected. And if I run this test, this is definitely not the way you TDD. It should fail, but I got ahead of myself a little bit there, but that's okay. So we'll do yarn just watch. Oh, maybe it does fail. Probably because, not because of the logic, but probably because, what am I doing? Failed to parse a file. Right, because I think I'm using the wrong stuff here, right? I'm using import from, but I'm using like whatever common JS. So I actually need to go require and this is going to be a const like that. This is how I want to import this. So yeah, I will rerun the test. Address already in use. I think that was just a glitch with Jest there, actually. So now that I'm running... Oh, why is this happening? There's nothing asynchronous that I'm doing. And I know you run into this problem sometimes when you have multiple... when you're running Jest in parallel, but we only have one test, so that's not true. Or am I just getting confused by... Oh, sorry, I'm just seeing the old error. Okay, I got confused there for a second. Although this is still... That part is still an issue. Your app is listening on port 3000. Okay, we might have to figure that out in a second. But this test here is failing because I'm not using the right thing. I'm saying to be instead of to equal. To be would be like... Literally it has to be this object, I think. Might be wrong on 2b, but to equal definitely just means that these should be equivalent. These objects should be equivalent. So let's run Jest again, just see if we can get that to be green. And we can. Now, why is this happening? I think because it might just be because we're I really don't know why, because we're not running. Oh, right. I think the very act of requiring this is actually running our app. Because I'm not super comfortable with these like common JS modules, but I think simply requiring it actually executes the file. So it literally ran all of this before it exported our create user. So we could do if let's go process.env let's do node environment is not equal to test. Okay. Then we do all this stuff, and I can just option or alt up while I have this stuff highlighted to move that block up. So yeah, if we do that, we won't be listening on port 3000. And what I can do now from the command line, I'm just going to quit it just for a second here. I'll just do node env is going to equal test, and then I can run Jest watch. Cool. So there goes that weird thing where it's like listening on port 3000, because we just don't do that anymore. So we've got a test passing. Obviously not a great test. I mean, it is a great test because it gets us moving, and that's kind of the whole point of test-driven development, is just incremental changes, trying to write as little of a test that you can, and then you go over into the actual production code. You try to write as little of that as you can to get it to go green. You just, if you can or if you need to, you refactor while keeping that test green without modifying behavior, and then you write a new failing test and you keep that process. So let me think about what we want to do here. So I'm going to keep these tests kind of floating down there. So it will return a user object, which is okay, but we do actually want this thing to persist somewhere. So I could install Mongo, and set up a schema and create a model, and all of those things. But another solution could be to just create like a list of users. So what if I just had, oh, I'm not gonna do production code. Let's do something that asserts that, let's see, how do I want to assert that it actually got created? I think I want to make a little utility function that can create a user and then fetch it after it's been created. So I guess what I want to test is that if I create a user, I can then fetch that user after, right? So let's do, and this could be like a class, right? Or like some sort of a service if you want. For now, I'm just gonna stick to just simple functions, and we can kind of refactor this stuff as we want to clean things up. So it can create it can fetch an existing user. Okay. And yeah, we'll have that whole like arrange, act, and assert sections again. And what I want to think about here is, do I want to create this user through the API, like calling this create method first, or whatever the storage mechanism is that where I keep the user? Do I just want to have a way to seed that state? So that's something to think about. I think for simplicity, I'm just going to call this create user method, and I want to assert. So this could be almost viewed as a little bit of an integration test, because it depends how you think of it. If you think of these as like separate units, it's like an integration test because we're testing to see if they can coordinate and work together. But arguably, these methods could just be on the same class, right? Or grouped together in the same module. They could just be functions exported from the same module, which technically they are because they're exported from server. In which case it's just it's a unit test. Now, sometimes it can be a bit of a code smell if your state is invoking some other method before testing another, but I think in this case, I'm just not going to worry about overthinking this and just do it. So I want to say that const, we'll just say given I mean, in this case, I guess it's still the same. So we're going to do like, you know, Johnny John or whoever, and we will go const expected is going to be pretty much this, right? So let me just grab this whole thing. We'll go like this. And instead of ID 123, I need a way to kind of predict what these IDs are going to be, I think. And this could be an issue later if I ever were to switch to Mongo, because I don't know if you can predict what the IDs would be. So I'll have to think about, like, there might be a better way to test this later. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create incrementing IDs and call it a day. So if the IDs are incrementing, that means if this is the first user, when I fetch it, the ID should be 1. So I'm going to actually do more setup, and that will be calling our create user. Oh, I guess this would be one way to assert this. So I could go, yeah, let's go given. What you could do is go const new user, or just call it user. And this could actually be the stuff that we use for setting up our expectation. So if I were to do it like, let's go like this, name. Now I'm fumbling over the wording here, and naming things is important, especially in tests, because I like things to be very simple when you're reading it. But I'm gonna create the user here, and then instead of ID, I could go user.id like this, right? So my expectation is that, you know, because I'm creating a user gives me something back. When I go fetch a user, I know that the data has to look like this. And I am gonna double check what is that actually supposed to look like, because this was just creating a user. But if I were to go like this and fetch just that user, what? Oh, that's not even an API endpoint. Interesting. I might be going down the wrong path. Let's think about this a little bit. What's our functionality? So actually, we might have to wait a little bit to drive out the rest of the behavior on this, because we're actually not at a point where we even need to add more functionality. If we're looking at just getting this test to pass first, we haven't actually gotten that far yet. So I'm maybe overcomplicating this. So I'm actually just going to, well, one, I'm gonna rip this out for a second. I'm gonna bring it back, but I wanna rip it out just so that I can do a commit. And we can go, we'll add our package lock in our package JSON, because this is just adding Express, or sorry, not Express, but adding Jest, right? That's the main thing we did. What is this? This is just formatting. Okay, so we brought in Jest, so we'll just say install Jest. And I have this create user spec index. I'm gonna discard this. I don't care about these formatting changes. And we'll just say add, implement add user function. Okay. And I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna bring this back, but I'm just gonna leave it as skipped for now. So we'll come back to this at some later time, I think. Or you know what? It's not even that much code, so I'm just gonna actually ditch it, because I don't love having code in your code base that isn't actually being used if you can help it. So let's just get rid of it. Yeah, so the next thing, so we can technically create a user right now. The problem is that we don't have an endpoint registered with this that's using it. So this is where, you know, there's not a whole lot more to unit test with this to drive the behavior. So we actually need something called like an HTTP or like an integration test. Just a matter of opinion, but let's go. Whoops, I want to click on test. I want to do new folder, and I'm just going to call these, we'll just say integration. And these are going to be, let's see, new file. I will go post users.spec.js. Okay. We're gonna do a little describe block here, and we'll just say post users. And it keeps doing that. There we go. I don't know why it keeps completing the wrong thing. I gotta get my editor. I gotta figure out how to like get it to know about Jest so that it doesn't do that on me. It returns a new user response or something. Sure, it works. Figure out a better name if we have to later. And yeah, we're gonna do the whole arrange, act, and assert thing. And I think we're gonna be cutting this video off in a little bit, and I think the next video will probably add up a code snippet to make this a little faster. Might be fun. So the arrangement is going to be, what kind of data do we need? I'm going to need something that can test our application from the outside in, so I need to be able to make an HTTP request. Now there is a tool called Supertest. So let's go over here into Chrome. I'm gonna bring up Supertest on Npm. And basically it's just a way to kind of bootstrap your Express application. Well, not just Express, actually you can use this for like Nest or any backend JavaScript app, I suppose. But yeah, the idea is you create your app and you pass it into Supertest, and then you're able to make HTTP requests into your app and do assertions on the data that comes back. So nice, handy little testing library here. And I'm gonna switch back over into VS Code, open up our terminal. And we don't need the side tab open right now. So we can just click out Jest for now. And we're just gonna do an npm I-d supertest. I is just short for install, by the way. Dash capital D means that this is going to be a dev dependency, which means it's not something that we need to install when we're deploying our application into production. It's only for when we're doing development. So now that I have that installed, I can go over here and I can just, whoops, I want to go up here. You can do const request equals require, and we'll do supertest. Okay. And we are also going to have to require our application, which is coming from server.js. And right now this isn't going to work because we're not actually exporting it out of our server.js file here. So let me just go and add app. So this should work. And then down in here, the actual action is going to be request, and we're going to pass the app. We're not do that quite yet. Let's think about arrangement. So I want to say that the given data is this Slim Jim guy here. We're going to create that user. Our expectation is yeah, again, probably gonna have to come up with a slightly different testing strategy. We could assert that it has the key ID and that the username is what we expect it to be. But for now, we can just assert that it's this exact object. So I'll say username is given, and that the ID is going to be 123, which isn't something that we're going to be able to depend on later. We are going to have to make a smarter test, but for now, this is going to work. So request, I'm going to pass it the app. I'm going to make a post request, and it takes a send method. So this send method is going to take our JSON data, which technically, if we look at the example in the front end, it's being passed as form data. So I should probably do a little Google here and just say supertest send form data, because I don't actually know how. Let's see. you can use attach method. I don't want to send a file. I just want to send... Yeah, I'm not trying to send a file. I just want to send just a form. Like I want to simulate a form. What do you call it? Not multi-part form. There's another one. Let's see. Form. Oh yeah, it's like XWW form URL encoded. Maybe I think is the thing I'm trying to do. I'm not gonna worry about it for now. Let's just do JSON data. So we're gonna do username is gonna be the given, and we can change this later and we can fix it. But for now, it's just gonna be JSON data, and when that comes back, so we've got our result. Technically, this is gonna be a response now, not just a result. So let's do response. I want to expect the response to equal expected. Okay. And the other thing is this is going to be asynchronous now, so I do need to await this. And that also means that I need my callback function inside my test to be asynchronous as well. So now that I got that going and I run Jest, let's see what happens. My unit test passes, of course, but now we have this URL object argument must be type string received undefined. Interesting. Oh, because I didn't give it a... That's right. You can't just call post. It's not smart enough. Super test is super, but it's not that super. So let's go tell it what it's actually supposed to do, which is hit API/users. And then we can bring the terminal back and we can try rerunning that test again. So in this case, our failure is app address is not a function. And this is something I've seen before, and I'm just trying to remember what the actual issue is. It could be that I'm not, yep. So the reason this is happening is because it's just a weird thing with require.
Hey, what's up, guys? So sometimes I speak in half sentences and I forget to finish the other half. And this is one of those cases. So I said that this issue is because of require, but actually the issue is that I'm not getting any errors in my editor. There's no IDE feedback because of require. But the issue that's happening here would have happened even if I was using ES modules with that like import from syntax, just to be clear.
But basically, I'm taking the whole module export, which is this whole object here, and I'm calling it app. Like technically, if I wanted app, it would be dot. Or if I wanted to use it down here, it'd be like this, dot app, right? So if I run this now, the test should be failing, but I'll at least get like a sensible error here, which is, actually I still have a type error because I use something that doesn't exist. But we got past the first error. So I don't want to actually do this. I want to import this properly, and that's just going to be destructuring app like this. And now that I have that imported properly, I can fix the spot here. So it's expect. And hopefully now we get a failure that is actually useful, which should be that the data we got back doesn't match what we thought we were going to get back. And that seems to be pretty true. So what we need to do is, well, if you look in here, it's kind of confusing, but basically we're getting, wait, why are we getting anything at all? I didn't expect anything. I expected a 404 because we didn't actually wire this up yet. Oh, we got something set up here where we actually return an HTML page for some reason with an error and says cannot post. Interesting. So I don't know where that's coming from. Is that a thing? That might just be a built-in Express thing. But either way, as confusing as that message is, I know that the problem is that we need to set up a route. So I'm going to do app.get, and we can do API/users, and it's going to take a callback function that takes a request and a response. And we're going to need to add something here because this JSON data is not going to be accessible to us yet. But basically, I want to do response.json, whatever the result of create user is, when I give it the request.body. Or what are the other things on request? There's body. How would I get, like, if it's like a form? I think form is also on the body though, right? Yeah, it is. So I'm gonna do request.body.username. And that's gonna return a new user, and that'll be a JSON response. But in order to be able to get things off the body, I need a package called body parser. So let me quit it to Jest, and we're gonna do an npm I-d, and we'll bring in body parser. Although, you know what? The last time I'm gonna use this, it said it was deprecated, so I'm gonna quick do a little Google here and just say body parser is deprecated. So what are you supposed to use instead? You can now... Oh, Express is just built in. And there's this for handling URL encoded bodies. So maybe I just grab this stuff here. And apparently in newer versions of Express, you can just here, we'll do this right after the course gets set up. We'll do this. So yeah, we're handling JSON payloads now and form data payloads. So this should work, and yeah, I think this is actually gonna pass. It did not pass. Cannot post. And you know why I can't post is because I didn't register a post route. I registered a get route. So let's register a post route. Kind of makes sense. And we'll switch back into the terminal. And I can run Jest again, and hopefully we get something. Oh, come on. What's going on now? I'm just gonna try to. I just want to make sure that this isn't an issue with me configuring supertest wrong. And let's quit Jest and just do a node server.js. And then I'm gonna open up Postman. Okay, so I have Postman open up here. If you don't know, this is basically a tool that allows you to create HTTP requests into your app, especially posts, because you can't just open up a browser and make a post request. So I am going to start by making a new collection, and let's just name this FCC exercise tracker. And I'm going to make a new request, and this request is going to be a post, and it is going to be, we'll just do local host 3000, and if we end up using Postman more, I'll show you guys a better way to do this, but for now I'm just going to hard code localhost 3000, and then we're going to go API/users. We're going to need to give it a payload, so I'm going to do a body, and we can just do, I guess that we can do form data technically, right? So let's go username, and the value, I'll just do my name. And if I send this, what happens? Okay, so we actually do get a 404 not found. So let me see why would that be happening. Is because I need to put a slash here. I might have registered this route wrong. The thing with Node is every time you make a change, you actually have to kill the server and then rerun it again. There is a tool where you can have this kind of watching in the background, which if I have to keep doing this, we might have to pull that tool in, but I'm hoping to get most of this done just by running tests. Okay. So this sort of did work. I didn't get exactly what I thought we were gonna get back, actually. So that part was weird, but yeah, form data. Okay. Weird that didn't work. I wonder if I did JSON. Let's do JSON. So if I went like this and we did the username, then that's it, right? Now I send. Now what do I get back in this response? Oh, interesting. Okay, so something's not working there, but let's I want to kind of drive this through the tests. So I don't want to go, where do I want to go? Right into VS Code. I'm just gonna make sure that you guys can see that. Okay. Let's quit the port. And I'm going to run Jest. So we're still, well, for one, why is my expectation weird in this test? Let me go back over here. Username, why is username not in the expected? I'll have to figure that out too, but I'm still, so we got the status, is text part of the response? I think the issue is I'm not actually pulling, I'm probably using supertest wrong, right? So response probably has like what, .json on it maybe? I might have to just consult the documentation on that, but yeah, okay, so that's not a function. Let's just go back into the browser for a minute here, and I'm gonna look up the supertest docs on this. So supertest, we'll just go straight to npm, supertest npm, and look at one of the examples that they have down here. Yeah, status. Oh, sorry, no, this is the implementation. This is the test. I am. Ooh, there's a chance that I have to set up these headers, although I don't think you have to. How do I make an assertion on the data that comes back? So there's this expect method on the response itself, so maybe that's it. But I thought you could actually like treat it almost like a real response. Do they not have any async await examples in the docs? So what if I did expect? Just gonna comment this out for a second. And let's just do dot expect, and we'll just say a 201, which technically we don't return, but we're gonna do that later. And then I'll just say expected. Let's just see what happens. Oh, so it's failing on the first one. So let's fix that. Let's make sure that this is returning a 200. So we'll go status 201, or rather 201, not 200. So we'll do that, go back over here, and then I'm gonna run our Jest test, and hopefully, okay, so this is actually passing now. So that's cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna pull something up here quick, because I was actually using supertest on another freeCodeCamp project, and this was working. I think I was using it in the URL shortener project. So I'm gonna open this up real quick for a second. You guys aren't gonna be able to see the right code editor just for a minute. And okay, so actually the issue is that I wasn't asserting on the data, I was just asserting on the response code in that case. So that's why. So okay, I wonder if, so if I uncomment that and I try to bring this back, maybe it's just like body, I wonder. There's no like super important reason why I want to get this to work. Oh yeah, okay, so it is body. More just for organization. There's nothing wrong with just like chaining the expectations on the end like that. But I was hoping to get it to work this way, so that's good. This is working. This is passing, and we're about to end the video soon. But I do want to actually deploy this and see if it passes in freeCodeCamp. And we are over an hour by now. We're quite a bit over an hour. So if this fails, we're gonna have to fix it in the next video. If it passes in the next video, we'll just be continuing on and fleshing out the rest of these features and probably adding a database eventually. Although it'll be fun to see how far we can actually go, because I bet I can get all these tests to pass without using a database. Maybe I'll do that first. All right, so let's deploy this thing. So the way we deploy is we need to make a commit. I'm just gonna go over here to see what I was doing. So I added super tests, so I'm gonna stage these files and we can just say install super test. And what do we got? We got server. We kind of did multiple things in here and I forgot to commit along the way. Usually I try to keep my commits smaller, but that's okay. We'll just say that we, yeah, wired up the post users endpoint. That's basically what we did, right? And we can close all these files. We don't need them anymore. And we'll bring this terminal up nice and big so everybody can see. And what we have to do is we have to git push Heroku main, and this is going to trigger a deployment. And there it is. So let's go over to our little freeCodeCamp section here. Click that we completed the challenge. Do we get this second test to pass? Let's see. Ooh, we actually got an extra test to pass because this one basically is asserting the same thing that this one is asserting, more or less. I feel like if you get this one to pass, you probably are going to get this one to pass, but there you go. There you have it. We have 2 passing tests. In the next video, we are going to be going through and just getting more of these tests to pass, and I'm going to make it a challenge to not use a database. And once all of these tests are passed and we kind of have all the behavior, then we can think about adding more functionality, making this thing sort of like a real application. And I'll just take this as far as you guys want me to go. So if there's anything you want me to do extra or anything you want to see in this series, just let me know. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of these. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter, Dan Fletcher Dev. I post pretty often about the stuff that I'm working on. So if you want to know in advance the stuff that's going to be coming out, you want to be following me on Twitter, and I stream anywhere between 4 to 6 days a week on Twitch as well. It's the original Fletch over there. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.